Rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Ji Ayanu, Pukhairagale, Ni Hao, Chunashumme, Washmale, Ohio Gazaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Halishuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasal, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Bhalli Kare, Hosh Galdin, Anayo Sayo, Huya Mora, Chi Vato, Chi Hal, Yod, Kalimera, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTB World. You're certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajar. How's your day so far?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So it's 1st of February and I do feel that it's already spring because it's not that cold, and I do remember last year that I think in the middle of the February one day we woke up and we were all sweating under our quilts because it was already very spring. It was not a wintry February, and I think because of this climate change and because of these changing conditionalities of the man-made crisis called climate change, we have been deprived of a lot of visual delights, especially in Islamabad, because Islamabad would look so pretty and so it would bloom to its best in the spring season. We would have a lot of cherry blossoms here, a lot of sapphires here, the greenery, and especially if you commuting through the Magala road, you would observe that there's a lot of natural flora and fauna, and then the hills that would bloom. But then again, last year I remember it was all gone because it was so hot, and especially in the April, the temperature rose as high as to 50 degrees, and it never ever happened in the history.
Don't remind us that, that too on
I
a
think
cold
the weather
winter
is
morning.
weather is going exactly the same direction. I really don't want that.
I think, that the weather actually kind of varies from individual to individual. I mean, today when I woke up, I thought, yeah, it's too cold today. And, you woke up, you were like, okay, it's not literally that cold. But eventually, ladies and gentlemen, I think with climate change, we have seen that either it's summers now or either it's winters. I think, earlier when we used to enjoy all of those beautiful weathers over here, I think, I don't know whether they're going to exist more or not. But having said that, Haja, I have a very simple question for you today. And that is something, which I was reading just yesterday. And I thought that, okay, we should actually start our show with this. So, imagine that, when we talk about Islamabad and how life is over here, it actually sounds like a fairy tale. It sounds like, this clean, wonderful city, second best capital in the world, with all the resources available, alhamdulillah. What I thought to myself was that, that God forbid, if it is chaos for somebody, so chaos certainly does mean that, it's a place where we certainly do not want to be, because it's an unknown territory, things are not under control.
That's true.
So I thought that, both can actually be equally irreversible to each other. So imagine that, if you are in chaos, I think for people who have trained themselves to be in a situation where they do not certainly have any control over it and still, can have that calm, still it'll be like having a fairy tale amidst the chaos. What's your take on chaos and fairy tale?
Okay, so I think that the chaos can sometimes be a lesson for those who are willing to learn, especially when we talk about the failures, right? So within that chaos, we can learn a lot, and especially people who do not have that much of very pertinent self-control over themselves, that they can really, wade away from here to there. But having said so, people, it can also be an opportunity for people to develop the self-control and to develop the serenity and calmness, because it is also a state of mind, right?
True.
Obviously, in the global inflation, things are not going great across the world. Having said so, but you can find your peace, your calmness, your serenity in the things that you would not even wonder in the natural life. For example, I do feel that interacting with nature can be very peaceful, can inspire you a lot, and especially Islamabad is a very fertile ground for that, because you would find such a diverse flora and fauna, stuff like that. But having said so, I do feel that because of this mushrooming trends of the growth and all of these housing societies, I think Islamabad is exactly what Lahore is going to be. Sorry, what Islamabad is going to be in the next 10 years, what Lahore is today now, right?
Exactly, and having said that, before we actually move on to our top stories, I think that the entire motive behind was that, what I realized was that, as many times as you will find yourself, unfortunately, because you thought that it was a chaotic situation, ladies and gentlemen, I think to be within that premise of not knowing things and you getting used to of it is actually you taking your own self out of that comfort zone, and it will certainly help you. Not that I wish or pray for anybody to be in that situation, but eventually and gradually you will realize that unknown sphere of life, ladies and gentlemen, still you have to figure it out, and for people who have figured it out are successful people who are amongst us as well, and they will certainly never tell you that how chaos has actually been with them or how they dealt with it. But having said that, I think what we really need to do today is we really need to get started with our top stories, and then we have a fantastic topic to discuss about. I mean, I don't know whether our parents actually thought about it or not, but let's get the conversation started. Top stories coming up. Haja, what do we have?
So Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has appealed all the political forces to get united against the anti-Pakistan element. In a tweet, he said terrorists, through their despicable actions, want to spread fear and paranoia among the masses and reverse our hard-earned gains against terrorism and militancy. And yesterday it was a very pertinent session on the National Assembly where this thing was debated, and especially Khwaja Asif came forward and he said that it is no religion to attack on the worship places, because what happened in Peshawar, and the casualty rate is rising by every moment because they are finding a lot of dead bodies in that rubble. Having said so, it is not Islam, number one. Those who have accepted the responsibility, those who are waging the war against the religion, I really don't know what sort of religion do they want, because at the one point they're saying that they want to implement the Shariat, and the another point they're attacking the places of worship. I mean, it doesn't happen in the very worst of times and what we are witnessing right now. So this is a very wonderful initiative, a very wonderful interaction of the Prime Minister to entire nation, in which he said that we need to unite behind all of those forces which are anti-Pakistan.
And you know, just to give you a solid example from our religion as well, and that is that, you know, when Pharaoh was actually underwater and when the angel of death actually went to take his soul away, ladies and gentlemen, it is being stated that he started to kick mud into his mouth just because of the fact that, you know, that God forbid if he asked for mercy from Allah Almighty, he might be forgiven.
Okay, so that's a very pertinent example to share. So moving on to another top story, a British Army officer has broken a second world record in the course of an Antarctic trek. Quite a trek. Preet Chandi, known as Polar Preet, has not only surpassed the world record for the longest solo and unsupported polar expedition by a woman, but also the overall record. So I think I feel so cold. I don't know whether it's because I'm really weak, because my mom keeps saying that. That I really don't know if I had the guts to go out in that polar sort of region and go out for a trek. But having said so, it inculcates a lot of adventure and the goosebumps in you,
but
right?
congratulations to Chandi, and
Yes.
you know, Haja, unfortunately, if you find yourself under the quilt and that too all sweaty in February, please make sure that you decide to go for a trek too as well.
Yesterday it was, the last year it was very hot. I mean, you need to admit that.
All right, we will admit that, but last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, my favorite bit of the news, ladies and gentlemen, where the Pakistan Cricket Board today, in fact, was yesterday constituted an 8-member selection committee under the chairmanship of former Test wicketkeeper batter Kamran Akmal, which will conduct under 13, under 16 and under 19 trials for the selection of regional and district teams. Besides Akmal, the newly constituted selection committee includes Sohail Tanveer. Obviously, everybody knows he's been a wonderful pacer. Amir Nazir, then Taimur Khan. Taimur Khan has actually served as the Director of Cricket Operations for Kashmir Premier League as well. Then Mr. Junaid Khan happens to be one of the most amazing bowlers of that time. Mr. Faisal Athar, Kaisar Abbas and Sanaullah Baloch. And a lot of people might be asking that why do you think that there's an 8-member committee which we need? Obviously, you know, when we speak about under 13, under 16, under 19, we certainly have to move to different regions, and we certainly need a bigger team to go and observe and then pick up that raw talent as well. But having said that,
yes,
you know, because I mentioned that, you know, today we're actually going to have one of the most amazing conversation, and it is because of the fact that I'm not sure whether our parents thought about it. And I, as a parent, whether did I think about it? Yes, I do. So imagine just yesterday, because I learned somewhere that if you are going to read in front of your children, they're going to read with you. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And I have a video footage of it. So I was reading my book. I know you do not like that author very much. I'm talking about Jordan B. Peterson. But what happened was that my little daughter picked up a book. She came up to me. She sat down with me, even though she does not know how to read.
Oh,
but she was sitting, she was mumbling, and she was doing her thing. And I liked it very much, that this is how you're actually going to make sure that your child's development is taking place. But having said that, do we really have anything, you know, under the umbrella of a policy? Do we really think about it as a nation? Are we trying to make sure that, you know, that our future generations are going to be smarter than us? I think that's something, ladies and gentlemen, which we wanted to discuss today. And we have some wonderful guests over here in the studio. So without any further ado, Haja, why don't you do the honors?
Okay, so first of all, we have Muhammad Rafiq Tahir Sahab, who happens to be Senior Advisor of Allama Iqbal International Open University, He happens to be also the DG Federal Education and the Pioneer for Education. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much, sir, for coming to our show.
Thank you so much.
Sir, Sir, it's an honor to have you over here because a lot of times you've spoken about single national curriculum as well, and you happen to be one of those gentlemen who've initiated the entire concept of single national curriculum. So it's an honor to have you over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So next up we have Ms. Khatija Khan, who happens to be CEO of Pakistan Alliance for Early Childhood. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you for inviting
Thank
me.
you
So,
so much for joining us. And you know, before I move on to Rafiq Saab, you know, I would want to get the technicality of the early childhood development right. So first of all, I would want you to differentiate it between early childhood education and then development. And when we speak about early childhood development, what are we in particular talking about?
Okay, thank you very much. Bismillah Rahmani Rahim. First of all, thank you for inviting us and for giving us this opportunity to discuss the most important topic, which is very close to my heart. Without talking about early childhood development, we cannot, no nation can talk about the development of its country or the development of its nation, its society, because early childhood development basically provides the basis for the for a sound society. You said that what is the difference between early childhood education and early childhood development. Early childhood education or early childhood learning is just one aspect of the whole child development. When we talk about early childhood development, it involves different domains of the personality of the child. For example, first of all, it starts with the cognitive development of the child, the brain development of the child, which starts right in the womb of the mother when the child is conceived. And then another most important domain is physical development of the child, language development of the child, and then when the child born, you work on the different aspects of
Safety and security.
Yeah, a child's care, child's protection, and then you try to develop their child as a balanced human being. So when we say early childhood development, we basically talk about the holistic development of the child, all the aspects of the child, not just one part which is
Not
early
only
learning.
education, so maybe personality development, caregiving.
Yeah, in Pakistan, unfortunately, the perception is when we talk about early childhood development, we just tend to think about early learning or early education, which is, I will emphasize, just one one aspect of the whole.
So what percentage out of 100% is education, do you think?
I don't know, I can't say it in percentages, but early learning of course is an important element of the whole child development.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So coming back to Rafiq Saab, I was going through the research and I came to know that children are also self-learners, right? And there's inherent wisdom in what they are doing, how they manage their timetable, and also who they uniquely are as a personality. And a lot of times we see that the parents, they are very protective of them and they want their, so children are not a plank to be filled in, right? So how much do you agree with this notion?
I think what you have said, up to some extent, I agree with your statement.
Okay.
But you see, everything, if you are just putting unattended and just assume that it will be done automatically, then it can take any direction.
Okay.
So, planned things, and yes, the natural development is you see, that is the most welcome, but the formal planning and organized things make a good personalities.
Okay.
So for this purpose, I think so. Okay, this is yes, the children have so many potentials. Sometimes they have the amazing thing which parent cannot think. Even myself, sometimes when I spend some time with my grandchildren, fantastic thing just came out from them. But you see, this is the most important. In any part of the world, you will see there must be a certain policy and certain plan for this very most important segment of the early development. So if you don't have that sort of the policy, if you don't have that sort of the plan, then thing will go anywhere in any direction. And you see in the sometime you will see in the different part of the country you are doing different things. So, but for a nation, as the Khatija mentioned, the best society development of a beautiful society, it is very important that we have to focus on the early childhood development. And early childhood development is the thing which is multi-sectoral. It's not, as you are talking about, it's not only education.
True.
It's not only health. It's not only, you see, nutrition. It is the multi-sectoral approach. So let's and unfortunately in my country, this multi-sectoral approach was just focused in the few years back. Prior to that, it was unfortunately not in that fashion, and not that.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to that, I think I would want to kind of go down that line as well, you know, because we go back in time, you know, I've been in conversation with my father, you know, he's always very proud, you know, he was a bureaucrat just like you as well. He was very proud that hum Tat wale schoolon pe padhe and all of that. Okay, I've heard those stories, I've seen a lot of success stories out of it as well. But what I wanted to ask over here, obviously, you know, you're representing Allama Iqbal Open University, and I think for the viewers to understand whether how does Allama Iqbal Open University contribute towards early childhood, number one. Number two, when we say that, you know, that we're going to plan it accordingly so that it is holistic grooming, holistic development for children out there, because it's multi-sectoral, that's wonderful. But don't you think that when we plan things, the outcomes only going to be one way around? You know, it's not going to be the way people can have different personalities, or they will think different ways as well. You know, because we are planning so much now, so the outcome would certainly be only the same way.
Yes, it's fine. I think I have to respond. Your first question is regarding the role of the Allama Iqbal Open University, and even in the broad sense, not Allama Iqbal, all the universities.
True.
You see, for the ECD, we need the 3 to 4 things to make it a policy things or make it a plan in the country. You see, first you have to have the some educational program, like this university can offer 4-year ECD program or early child education program, and in the world there are so many programs meant for this purpose, because you have to train a teacher, a force of the people who train all these things and do all these, who
ECD
execute
force.
all these. Yeah.
So the university first they have offered the undergrad or the postgrad program in this in this specific area of the ECD. Secondly, you see, we need the certain material which need to be used when we are executing all these policy and everything.
True.
So that the university do, they have the potential to develop that material for that purpose. And then most important things, the people who are going to execute these things, even it include not only the teachers, it is the caregiver, it's the parents. So you must have the certain training program, how to develop their capacity to do all these things with the most important force of the children of the ECD force.
Exactly.
So university has the very key role in the beginning, but then the school and the preschools and the other health ministry and other, they have their own role.
Exactly.
But the university basically play a very important and a key role.
Now coming to the second part of it, where I said that, you know, if you're going to plan so vigorously, obviously the outcome be that one way around, you know, so people will be thinking the same way, they'll be doing the same things.
It depends. You see, sometime it's not, you see, all the time it doesn't happen, but it depends.
True.
If you have a very good plan and very good policy, and say sometime because I have the part of the ministry for a long time, we have so many policy, we have so many plan, but the issue is the execution and the implementation.
True.
In implementation, when sometime we have a policy and we have given the vision that after 10 years, Pakistan education sector will be like this, but after 5 years we say it's a totally different. So
Dilemma.
sometimes plan is good, policies are good, but execution is the you see is the one of the big problem. And if you see our 2009 education policy, in the first chapter we have mentioned 2 things. Why the education policies of Pakistan not given that result which we have decided and we have written in that this will be the outcome of this policy. The reason is the commitment gap, and the second is the implementation gap. These 2 things always lack, and policy doesn't give the. So what you have said, yes, we plan good,
we think in the different way, but outcome when we go for execution is a different. And if the financial thing, you can see the education sector of Pakistan
True.
from 47 odd, how much we are investing in our education.
That's true.
How much?
And these are some of the very important points I think we need to discuss and rethink our approach when it comes to education. So moving to Ms. Khatija, I want let's pontificate over this maxim that usually comes in the parents' mouth, that is the earlier the better, right? So a lot of and I think sometimes it fosters very unnecessary competition among the parents and the kids also, because parents want to give their kids a jump start, and they want to make a show. They have this fear that if you do not give that necessary jump start, then the kids will lag behind and they will stay that way. So is that a myth? Do you want to bust it, or is it a reality?
Thank you so much. Well, I will talk about the science of early childhood development. And according to the science, the child's development takes place in different phases. And the first phase, which is the most critical phase, is called first 1,000 days.
Okay.
And the first 1,000 days start right from day one of the conception of the child.
Right.
And then it completes when the child's second birthday completes. So
Okay.
this window is called first 1,000 days.
Right.
This is the first phase of early childhood development. During this phase, the child's brain develops at a very fast speed.
Right.
And some research studies say that the brain develops 90%
Okay.
during this phase in the first 1,000 days. Some say it's 80 to 90%. So this is the most critical phase. And then from
First 1,000 days.
Yeah, first 1,000 days. And then from 2 years to 5 years, the remaining brain development takes place, and then from 5 to 8. So when I reflect upon your statement, which is the common perception of
True.
all of us in Pakistan, that the child starts developing when she goes to school.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the correct perception.
True.
The development, as I said, starts right from the beginning, and the critical phase is first 1,000 days. And as Rafiq Sahab said, that parents are the key stakeholders in the child development. So we really need to focus on the capacity building of parents. We need to introduce a parental program, parental education, where we can tell them how the child develops and what are the contributors, because the child does not really develop in isolation.
True.
He or she needs the right interventions. The child needs proper care, proper nutrition, proper emotional support, and a conducive environment, so all the faculties of the child properly develop. So unfortunately, we are not really focusing on this phase, and we are not really focusing on the second phase, which is from 2 to 5 years. We are more worried about when the child becomes, when he or she is in the age bracket of 5 or 6, then we start worrying about them.
True.
About their schooling, and we think that once the child is 4 or 5, we have to send him or her to school, so that his or her development starts taking place, which is, I think, it's not the right perception. We have to change this perception, and we have to change our approaches, because parents have to play an important role in the holistic development of the child.
True.
So this is the most I would say important area where Pakistan is not really paying any attention.
And thank you for highlighting that as well. I believe that that's what we do on PT World. We change perspectives, and that's why we gather today. But having said that, I'm going to present to you a very fair example. So, my second daughter, when she was born, I was very attached to her. I hope that my elder daughter is not watching. But obviously, I love them equally.
Or youngest
But
one.
what happened was then that my youngest daughter came in, and then I could see naturally Allah has actually given them so much potential that they start to attract parents. They start to attract all sorts of love.
I'm
So
sure.
they're naturally competitive.
Yeah.
Children, if we speak about them.
Yeah.
So, for the audiences out there, so that they can understand it better, we are saying nurturing for transforming lives.
Lives,
The
yeah.
power of early childhood
Childhood
development.
development.
What is the power of early childhood development?
Okay, the power of early childhood development rests in the brain of the child. As I said, the brain develops 90% when the child is only 2 years,
Yep.
2 year age. Um, as you said that the child attracts you or the child does so many things because the potential is there.
There, true.
We have to unleash the potential, right? And if, the connections which take place, the neural connections take place in the brain of the child. For that you have to provide stimulation, and that stimulation is through talking to the child, interacting with the child. See, in our society we do not talk to the child. We think that he is a small child, why, what can he or she
Imagine
understand?
I sat down on
But
my daughter's bicycle the other day, a tricycle in fact.
Yeah.
You know, she's only 3 years old. You know what she said to me? She said, "Daddy, you're too big for this." And I was
This
like,
self-certain,
and I was
right?
like, yeah, I could, I would never have said that, you know, if I was
Yeah.
3 years old to my father, कि अब्बू जी आप थोड़े बड़े हैं
Yeah.
साइकिल के लिए.
and the early interaction which you are doing, I like your example which you gave earlier, like you are reading to your daughter or you read a story to your daughter, which is an excellent stimulation for the, for the connections. But to keep the connections building, you have to keep doing the stimulating activities, otherwise the connections will not take place, they will stop. So you have to really, stimulate that whole
Yeah.
process in the brain.
Yeah,
And
and
the
thank you very
pow-
much for saying that, because just the other day I was even being suffocated just because of the fact that I was stimulating their brain. So I was under the quilt and I had to do a puppet show. And I was like, okay, Putter, I cannot breathe now. And then she was like, nah, continue. But having said that, sir, one
You-
last question. Obviously, we're continuing with it. We have other guests, who will kind of develop on it as well. And
Right.
having said that, sir, Rafiq sir, what I wanted to ask you was, we've always, me and Haja have spoken about how Pakistan is an over-legislated country. The policies are in place. It's always the implementation. The dilemma is there, no matter what happens. Now, sir, Alhamdulillah, this is the 4th time that this Early Childhood Development Conference is going to take place on the 22nd and the 23rd of February. What will be a takeaway for people who are going to join? And can anybody come in and join you?
Thank you so much. This is most important question for us, because you see the journey of this national conference on the early childhood development. It was started in 2017. That was the first conference when we all friends was sitting together in the Ministry of Education, and we are planning that let's hold one of the conference where all the stakeholder working under this umbrella of the ECD in the country, in the different part of the country, even internationally, let's call them and we sit together and we start discussing ECD in Pakistan. So that was the first, and I have a appreciation of the few friends. One of the, at that time, the former Vice Chancellor of the Allama Iqbal Open University, Dr. Shahid Siddiqui, one of our very important friend, Nasruddin Rupani sir from USA, he was here in Pakistan, Khatija, myself, Dr. Nasser, all these people are sitting together and planning. So journey started. You see, this conference laid on a beautiful foundation for ECD in the country.
Right.
All the people working in the different part of the country, working in the different manner, working in the different ways, know they have a common platform. And even the outcome of that first conference was the PAFIC, Pakistan Alliance for Early Childhood Education in this country. At the moment, Khatija is the CEO of that. So donor was with us, all these stakeholder was with us, all the educationists, all the health people, even that first conference, the Almighty Allah bless his soul, the then President, the President Mamnoon Saab, he was the part of that conference. We presented certain recommendation and he was very happy that let's do it in practical. So this journey started 17, then second conference, then third, and now it's the international 4th conference.
Alhamdulillah.
It is, yes, open. The people who are interested, they can come and join as a different session of this conference, because it will be for 2 days. And so many people are already formally invited, but the people who have the interest, and everybody, you have the interest because
parents.
these kids and this early childhood development is the most important segment for us for any country of the world. So
yeah,
yes.
and thank you so much, sir,
Thank
for
you so
highlighting
much.
that as well. And we'll continue this conversation. We have to head out towards a short break. We want to say thanks to you for joining us, for taking out
Thank you
time.
so much.
But sir, having said that, before I actually head out towards a short break, I have to ask this question in Urdu. सर चूंकि अब आपने माशाल्लाह चौथी इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस होने जा रही है, इतना ज़्यादा सीख लिया होगा अर्ली चाइल्डहुड डेवलपमेंट में, आपको कभी लगता है यार मुझे पहले पता होता मैं अपने बच्चों को और बेहतर कर सकता था?
जी ये बहुत आला क्वेश्चन है, और मैं सच्ची बात है कि मैं तो क्योंकि ईसीडी के साथ मेरा कोई ताल्लुक पिछले 20 साल का है, लेकिन इस कॉन्फ्रेंसेस के बाद और ये सारे जो आउटकम हमारे सामने या जो लिटरेचर या एग्जांपल बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस द वर्ल्ड जब हमने देखी, तो मैं और कुछ नहीं करता, मैं अपनी बेटी को ज़रूर बताता रहता हूँ कि उसकी अब वो जो मेरी नवासी है कि प्लीज़ दिस इज द जो जिस दौर में हम इग्नोर करते हैं ना बच्चों को, जो खतीजा बता रही थी असल डेवलपमेंट का, तो वो वहाँ बच्चों को अटेंशन चाहिए, और हम 5 साल के इंतजार करते हैं बच्चा स्कूल जाए.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
joining
much.
us. Wonderful to have you over here. Ladies and
you so
gentlemen,
much.
we'll continue with it as well.
Right.
You know, what are the more other, you know, significant opportunities
yeah.
we do see, you know, when we speak about early childhood development conference taking place on the 22nd and 23rd of February 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak about it, we're very lucky that we will be joined by the Vice Chancellor of Allama Iqbal Open University with us as well. And then we have a representative who actually wants to speak about it as well. So we're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, Shahzad very pertinently mentioned that it is important for the parents to be integrated into that conference because it essentially it concerns them, the development of their childhood, and especially the early development is very much important, and to actually bridge the gap between the academia and between what is practiced. And I do feel that the parenthood is something which is taken very for granted in Pakistan, right? No one tells you that how it should be. Rather, the more you practice that, the more you will announce it. So to talk more about it and how actually we can unpack the early childhood development, we have a wonderful guest in our studio. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Sabah, who happens to be ECD expert and also associated with the UNICEF Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum and thank you so much for coming to our
So
show.
thank you so much for joining us. But having said that, and before we get started with the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, where we speak about parents, I think we certainly need to talk about all the efforts which have been undertaken by teachers as well. And such is an example I'll be sharing with you from SLS School. Please go ahead. Let's just take a look at what they actually did to make sure to kind of build up on the early childhood development. Let's go. Let's take a look.
Extracurricular activities are very important for children in education. Yesterday, a fun day was celebrated at SLS School Satellite Town Branch, Rawalpindi. Children and teachers arranged different stalls to educate children regarding cultures of different provinces. To understand about climate change, students and teachers arranged biodiversity stalls. Livestock stalls were also established to give concept about rural, urban life, dairy and livestock. Children also enjoyed entrepreneurship stalls of global professions. Different stalls of eatables were also established parents and teachers enjoyed throughout the day. Such kind of activities help children to develop their concepts about different fields of life and also bridge gaps between students, teachers and parents as well.
Wow, and I believe that all the schools really kind of contribute towards early childhood development. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, as we have mentioned that we've been joined by Dr. Sabah. So Dr. Sabah, a very warm welcome once again. Thank you for joining us. We've had a lot of conversation with Mohammad Rafiq Tahir Saab, and obviously when we speak about Ms. Khatija Khan. But having said that, you happen to be representing United Nations International Children Education Fund as well. What is the direction we are going in with ECD?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting UNICEF representative. As UNICEF
Jazakallah.
representative, I am here for the mandate of early childhood development. So before going how we are contributing to this mandate, I just would like to unpack ECD,
Yeah, go ahead.
early childhood development. Early, how early? It starts from conception. So we need to be very clear that if we want to talk about child, we need to take care of mother as well. So that means if a mother is conceiving, so we need to take care of maternal nutrition, maternal health and all those dimensions which would be contributing to the child development.
Okay.
So moving on,
Do you
childhood.
think that we need to look after the father too? Or?
Of course, I'll be coming
Thank
on
you.
to father aspect as well. And I'll tell you how much percentage we are having when it comes to the father engagement
Okay.
for childhood development.
Thank you.
I'll be telling you those statistics as well. Now, childhood, so 0 to 8 years. That doesn't mean that after 8 years there is no there is no importance of taking care of a child, but these are the years where development is actually happening with very fast speed. And as my colleague earlier already elaborated on the golden 1,000 days, first 2 years, development. What does it mean, development? So it's like not just focusing on child's physical ability, like a child should be physically healthy, emotionally stable, socially competent, and as well as able to learn. So it's a composite thing. Hence, if Pakistan wants to move ahead with, with good ranking of human development, we definitely need to focus on our children and its development.
And having said that, so I have a question for you. So for example, this was a challenge for me just yesterday because my daughter was crying. She came to me. She said that, Mama's dunting me. That's what she says. She's only 3 years old. So I sat down with my wife and I was like, why did you scold her? And she said that, she was hugging her Qari Saab. Now imagine that for me it was so difficult to make her understand because that's not the kind of life I would want for my daughter. And when you speak to a 3-year-old, how can you make her understand that, okay, yaar putter, you can only hug your daddy, your dada, and then she was asking Anan Mamu or other Mamu, can I hug them? So it was a longer debate. How do you think early childhood development can actually help parents in such problems as well?
Thank you for highlighting this point, and this is one of the component of child development, how to make them secure.
True.
In certain environment. When we talk about development, development is happening in certain environment. What are those environment? Who are the enabler of those environments? So it's basically parents. So that means we need to educate and make them learn, the parents, and it's not just mother's duty as well. As you rightly mentioned, it's father's engagement equally required. And coming back to this, just want to highlight just 3 to 5% statistically, I'm talking about, our fathers are engaged when it comes to parenting of their children. Now, what we can do, as my colleagues already highlighted in first panel discussion, that there are components: health, nutrition, learning, which is education, safety and security, and environment also relates with WASH as well. So if we would like to claim that we are contributing towards the development of a child, we need to see all those components, and all sectors, all sections, all systems have to contribute.
Yeah, multi-sectoral, you know,
Yeah,
we've talked about it as well,
multi-sectoral,
but there needs to be a framework we need to
Yeah.
follow, right? Do we have a framework?
Yes, we do have, fortunately, we do have framework, and
Wonderful.
it's globally available, and it is adapted in the Pakistani context as well. We used to call it nurturing framework, you know, and that framework is actually having all components, and it has a very strong element of early stimulation and
Right.
responsive caregiving.
Right.
There comes a role of parents.
Right.
And fortunately, it's a little bit a start here in Pakistan, but UNICEF is supporting government of Pakistan, and as well as Ministry of Planning and other ministries as well, to roll out parenting program in this country. It is very new initiative, I must say, but that's the direction we are looking towards, you know, reaching to the communities, because merely having policies and you know, the documents probably won't solve our problem. We need to have a quality community based scale up parenting program. In this regard, we just took few steps, and there are few districts, almost 24 districts, where parenting program has been launched, and there we are engaging parents how to interact with their child.
It's wonderful, but do you think that we are prioritizing things the right way? Because unfortunately, we live in a country after 75 years of independence, we might not be able to fulfill our energy resources, we might not be able to have plenty of food on our tables, we have stunted growth, we have malnourishment in the country. How do you think in this regard UNICEF is actually helping Pakistan get better?
Yes, thank you. So basically, we are very well aware of the fact, the
Yeah, these are the
statistical
problems we
analysis.
face,
Yes, half of our children, almost 20 million children of Pakistan are stunted. What does this mean? It doesn't just, you know, that they are short of height. Their cognitive abilities are on compromise. It means that as a nation, half of our children, they'll be going to be adult, and the contributions towards, you know, development of this country would be jeopardized and compromised. So what UNICEF is doing, we know that there are challenges in health, we know that there are challenges in nutrition, we know that there is less engagement from when it comes to the family side, we know that there are so many girls out of school, you know. So there are approaches, multi-sectoral strategies are there, policies are there, and as well as recently, you know, UNICEF is supporting government of Pakistan for the development of ECD policy framework, standards and index, which is, you know, setting a policy instrument for a country, setting a direction, but that doesn't mean that it's still that policy is translated into the action. UNICEF would be continually supporting to government of Pakistan for the implementation of all those policies and programs. As I said, that we actually did not wait for the policy to be endorsed. We have already moved ahead with the parenting programming, because aim is to reach to the communities and to the children who are, you know,
And
waiting
what
for us for
medium will
this.
you utilize, you know, when we speak of, you know, that there are going to be these parenting programs? Because I believe that it really needs to be on a medium which is consumed by masses.
Yes. So what we did, you know, all the community platform mapping. It includes health workers, teachers, and whosoever, those who can knock the door and can have access to the families. So all those platforms, health, nutrition, education, child protection, all those platforms, but not relying only on those. We all, thanks to you as well, we are also relying on the media, social media, mass media.
Right.
So all best possible channels where we can raise, you know, the awareness around early childhood development.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And having said so, I do feel that the parents have to deal with the children, and sometimes it's very emotionally, they consume a lot of energy. And having said so, children have obviously low emotional self-control, and their impulse control is also very low, and they can become cranky, and that's a very difficult job for the parents to tackle to it. So how do you think that parents can tackle such situation without being too cranky about it?
Well, to be very honest, that's parenting program is one of the guiding program
Wonderful.
which can actually not make parents learn about the early childhood development,
Yep.
but how to deal with the children when it comes to communication. And this communication actually start from the day one or 0 day. Usually we wait for a child for 5 years, and then we think that okay, now it's a time to interact with the child. No, this is not the case. Even if mother is breastfeeding, can communicate. If mother is feeding a child, that's a communication. But again, it's a very challenging in the context of our country, where there are so many claims of quality, non having quality time from father side especially. Shahzad, you've asked for that. So, but still we believe that
अब्बू बेचारे
it's
रगड़े ही जाते हैं जब भी आते हैं ना रगड़े ही जाते हैं
because by default mother's role in nurturing care is well
ये
recognized
जो
and
हम
it's
बाहर
there,
आके मेहनतें
but
करते हैं तनख्वाहें घर जाके
yeah.
देते हैं पूरा पूरा दिन काम करते हैं कि हमारे बच्चे अच्छे पढ़े लिखे हम कोशिश करते हैं उनके साथ टाइम गुजारें इसकी कोई कभी सेलिब्रेशन होगी मेरा ख्याल
So Shahzad, the last word of yours, उनके साथ time गुजारें. Let's spend quality
Yes.
time. That's important. So we measure engagement with quantity. We need to see the quality.
Exactly. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
saying
much
that.
for
I
saying
think
that.
when we say it, it obviously does look, yeah, this is the wisest thing to say. But, imagine me as a father, I think for the last 6 months, I've not had a weekend off. But still, I've managed to have that quality time with my children. So, for somebody to label, कि यार बाप नहीं माँ नहीं, I think let's not get into this debate because we do not have that policy where one size would fit all. I think what we really need to talk about is people from different walks of life have different backgrounds, will have to make sure that the frameworks are according to their culture, they're according to their morals, they're according to their values, so that we do not have like one example and then we have thousands of examples out there just because we planned for one thing. I think that's where we really need to kind of make sure that we join our heads as well. But this conversation does not end over here. The program timing might end over here. We might come back next week, build up on this as well. But for everybody who's out there, there were 100 papers which came out, 56 of them were selected. And that obviously they were selected because of a reason, because whatever is written in those papers, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be fruitful for ECD when we talk about early childhood development. The conference is going to take place on the 22nd and 23rd of February 2023. Alam Iqbal Open University, thank you so much for giving us those teachers and parents who are actually going to be focusing on early childhood development. The debate does not end here. It starts here. Good morning. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.